Okay, it's going.
Yay.
Good.
Sweet. Okay, should we talk about seeing color and the lack of African American in literature first, since that's for everyone?
Sure.
Sure.
Okay. Um.
I wish I could have two different tabs in Canvas.
Say that again?
Say that again.
I wish I could have tabs in Canvas open so I could pull up the readings.
You can in Google Chrome.
Ah. This is gonna be real bad. Okay. It's okay. Sorry, Joy. Okay, so seeing color. I feel like a lot of like the reaction that I had to seeing color is similar to what a lot of you said in your post, and that it was just really surprising in both articles that like how African Americans are just not represented in literature. Like it's only 93 or something, and I think we all talked about how important it is to have diversity in the classroom. And yeah,
I thought
I don't
it was
know.
really
Yeah, no, sorry.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go. No, I'm done.
Oh, okay. I was just gonna say, I thought it was really cool how in Seeing Color, like it was really nice to read about how the teacher like addressed when students would ask her kind of like tough questions or say like comments like I think there was like an African American girl in like the article that was saying she wanted to look like the little like blonde haired like white girl on the cover, and she like addressed that and like said no, you're like fine the way you are. So it's like it was really interesting to read because sometimes like I feel like if I'm ever going to be put in that situation, it's kind of hard to know how to respond. So that was a good example of it.
Yeah. It was really shocking to me that like in meetings they would say like color blindness is super important to their teachers. It just it was like shocking for me to read. But
yeah, it kind of brought me back to that place because I feel like now I'm kind of at a place where I've known for a while, and the people that I talk to have known for a while that like colorblind isn't really the way to go.
Right.
Like it's not really helpful, but it reminded me like how many people are like a step past like overt racism is like, oh, pretend it doesn't exist. Like here's a problem. Let's. The problem is that we treat students differently because of their race, so we should not treat students at all. And it kind of reminded me like how that you can grow past that and like grow like together past that. That was nice to see.
Yeah. I thought it was kind of crazy, like in the lack of African Americans in literature, like the statistic that like I think it said in 2013, like there were 3,200 children's books published, and only 93 were like about Black people. That just kind of blew my mind. Just seeing that, like, really puts it in perspective, like just how little they're represented in children's literature and probably all literature in general.
yeah.
Well, then, piece of literature, they're not in like main roles or like the main characters, the big roles. They're like supporting characters or the villains, like what Joy was talking about, like how My Little Pony, right, one's the good pony and one's the bad one and all that. So it just kind of like the good and evil.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy that that even happens in My Little Pony. Like, that's pretty sad.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We talk about our Jigsaw stuff now.
Yeah.
Okay. Who is
Um,
they?
Sarah and I are.
Okay.
Yes. Are. Let's see. Why don't you take it away? I've talked enough already.
Well, it was just like what was most surprising to you about these two pieces, and then we all kind of already talked about that. But then I related it to Woodring's mission of social justice, and in like a direct quote from their mission is act with respect for individual differences, including taking a strengths-based view.
That's the one I talked about as well.
What?
That's the one I talked about as well in mine.
Yeah, and I just said that like after reading The Tunnel, it clearly shows that like many books that we have been chosen or that were chosen in the past, because like I know that reading this, all that was super familiar to me, and I could like pinpoint where in my education I have like seen that kind of thing, and those books aren't going along with Woodring's mission whatsoever. And it's interesting, like I want to see what those type of books like look like now in schools, because I haven't like gotten the time to like sit down in a school library and evaluate all the texts that they're bringing forward to the children to read and stuff. So that would be something that I would want to do in the future, or even like now if I got the chance. But
Mhm. Yeah. Adding to that, one thing that I like going through the like elements that they had us look at and like which one was most surprising. I think I wasn't really like surprised by one like, oh my god, like I'd never thought of that before, because I'd seen all those misrepresentations before, and it's all pretty clearly like not great things to do.
yeah,
The one that struck me the most was what was it? I want to quote it. Does it take white standards for Native people to get ahead? Because that seems really like a really sneaky one, because it's like, well, these standards are good. Like, we want people to like succeed in school in this certain way and get this type of job, and like that's what's good for everyone, right? So that's not a bad thing to like apply to these people in these books, but like it is harmful still.
yeah,
That's one that really struck me as like I can see how that would be like really well intentioned and kind of harder to see.
yeah,
And so it didn't really surprise me to see it there, but it made me realize that like that might be hard to see like without looking at it specifically, you know?
That kind of,
Yeah.
sorry, that kind of reminded me of like, in the lack of
No, you're good.
Africans. Am I really delayed?
No.
Okay. In the lack of African Americans in literature article, I think it was that one that it talked about, oh my gosh, the little boy that like his dreams were to become like a basketball player and a rapper, and that those are like his standards, but they're only because like those are like the standards of the books of that, in the mainly white books, those are like the only, I don't know, black figures that they can look up to, that that little boy has seen, and that's like, so these white standards are what he's trying to meet, like, of his own, I don't know where I'm going with that, but
No, yeah, definitely that makes a lot of sense.
yeah, I thought it was really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that
it's not only what they see. Oh, sorry, you can go, Sarah.
just real quick, like, yeah, Alexis, I can see how that would be like one byproduct of why it's harmful to apply these white standards, but we might not think it would be, right? But yeah, what were you gonna say, Emily?
I was just saying it's not only just what they're seeing in the books, it's in everything, like all of the media around them, which is super important for us we have to be able to read and relate the text that they're reading to the media they're consuming, and most of the time that isn't done. It's just focused on just the textbooks. But I think it would be a good idea to link those two together to let our students see the relationship between the two.
Yeah.
Do you mean by like, are you envisioning like a specific like activity, like where, or like a reflection, like after you read a book, like how do you see this in the media?
I think
Different.
Yeah, I think just like showing two like different forms of examples, two like media outlets or whatever, and then having them compare the two and see. I didn't really like think about it too much, but just like I think an activity like that would be cool to do.
Mhm. Mhm. So like putting the books in like a broader context.
Yeah.
I like really delayed. Can you hear me? Can you hear
Yes.
me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I think that nicely ties to the Jigsaw letter B, and about how there's just like lack of representation in the children's books for Black students. And the question for B is about the what's it called? The mascots. And I think it's like Alexis, you said in your post that students need to understand that the things that they see in media and the things like, what did you say specifically? Oh yeah, like the mascots, like when that's the only exposure that they're getting to Native Americans, then they're getting such a stereotypical like representation of what Native American people are like and what their culture is like. Is really African children's literature because they're not seeing their culture represented, and I feel like it's a little bit of wow, like my culture must not be as I'm reading about is only white people. And there was one talking about the mascot in Washington, and I remember like in Sociology 269 my freshman year, like saw the girl like boycotting the mascot, but I didn't think it would be so close to Washington.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's because it's such like a liberal state, quote unquote, but just like reading about that was interesting, but at the same time kind of disappointing that a state like Washington like still has that kind of stuff. And for me personally, I liked how she had like in bold all of the things that people would say, like, no, like we're respecting Native American culture, like we like the Native American people, that's why we're using them as mascots, like you should be honored. But then she had like a direct counter to that, which I think is super useful because like now I know how to react when someone says that to me. So I really like that reading.
I did too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It kind of blows my mind that the mascots are still being used, like the mascots in like the in all the different sports, because it's like you can hear all these Native American people like telling them this is offensive to us, but they just keep telling them no, it's not. This should be honoring you. But if they're saying it's offensive and yet they're still doing it, it's like what is that saying about the rest of the country? We just don't care.
Yeah.
It's so dehumanizing. Like
It
not
is.
listen to what I'm asking for. And it's like the same thing for Black Lives Matter, like with all the shootings that's
Yeah.
been happening this week. It's like the same thing over and over. And I just feel like the number one thing that people need to do is just listen and empathize. Because I feel like Native Americans have been fighting against mascots for so long now. But yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. For sure.
Well, not even just that. Like, what was it? Like 2 years ago, when even in Bellingham, when Indian Street was changed to Billy Frank Jr., like that was a step in the right direction. But I wish that it would have been like publicized more. I had no idea that they were changing the name of it, and I just feel like those issues aren't always in the forefront, and they should be because they are important. And we are, by putting those names on street signs or on mascots, we're saying that we're being accurately representative of that culture, and that's not the case. Like that's usually never the case.
Yeah.
And then like
Westerns Nastu, like
oh, go ahead.
Okay. So Western's Nastu group like had a conference this year to like hold the university accountable because apparently Western like made treaties for like the indigenous people at Western's like campus, but like the president and the university hasn't done anything like that. And it was actually very public, like you could go and stuff, and it got a lot of media attention. But I mean, it just ties to what you were saying, Emily, about how even when like a street name is changed, no one knows why and for what reason.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I was just gonna say, kind of related to like the whole mascot thing, that I'm kind of still surprised that they're still available, like during Halloween time when they sell like Native American costumes. Like,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, it's hard. I just feel like people don't know what cultural appropriation is.
Or they just don't care. Like, I actually had a friend that her sister was um, super into that Disney movie that came, or Pixar movie that, well, I don't know, it was an animated one, but it was with like the Day of the Dead masks on, like all of their, I don't remember what it was. It was like Day of Life, Book of
The
Life.
Book of Life.
There
I
you go.
love that movie.
Super cute movie, awesome. But her sister was all into that stuff, and so they were dressing up as a couple of the girls from the movies. But there's like this whole thing with like Halloween and Day of the Dead where a lot of people think it's the same thing, but it's not. And I was trying to like explain that to her, and she didn't even care. That she's like, yeah, I basically know it's cultural appropriation, but whatever.
Yeah, so I guess that goes back to like people don't understand the effects of this type of stuff, like the effects of like whitewashing in books, or like like a lot of the things that we've been like reading about, like all the bad things on the list of like don't do this in literature. It's like, well, sure, I'm doing that, but like why should I care? Like, yeah, this mascot is offensive, but like what harm is it doing? Like it hurts people in like real and physical ways. Uh, and I think Riley, like you mentioned empathy, like it's just like people don't make that connection between like actually like understanding what ramifications that can have.
And it is just like making it known to people because like I know when I was growing up I would play teams that were like had logos or mascots that were after Indian tribes or whatever, and I just it was over my head. I had no clue, and growing up that was like the Indians were the warriors and were the feathers and stuff, but like in the article she was talking about how yeah, during wartime we celebrate our warriors, but like we also have like the women and the children are like celebrated in different ways as well, and they like give us life and stuff like that. And it's just that we just don't really know as we're growing up, and it's like we have to expose children to that and people to that so that because I feel like when I was growing up I had no idea.
Yeah, for sure. And hopefully that's something that we can work for as like teachers and stuff, like providing that for our students and for our communities.
I have a muddy question.
Yes.
Something that I've always I'm gonna get my pen in. Something that I've always like been afraid of is like if you teach, students as young as first graders about this stuff, like I always wonder if administrators will get mad. I guess it really depends on what school you're teaching at and like what district, because every school is going to be different. But for me, like when I was trying to like decide what school I wanted to go to for my last quarter of internship, like I really looked at the schools and what their values on like diversity and equity was, just because like this is the kind of things that I want to be teaching to my students, but I don't want to lose my job over it, But I don't know. I don't know how to turn that into a muddy question.
No, how do we teach this to kids without losing our job?
Yeah.
I feel like that's a super real question, or even like not necessarily worse than losing your job, but like facing a hostile work environment, like.
I mean, it's even a question of like, is that achievable? Like, is that even a thing? Like, where you can teach this stuff without having a hostile environment? Because I feel like there's always going to be that one person that's like, no, it should be all lives matter, you know?
Yes.
Sorry, my heart.
Kind of things without any hostility.
And it's not necessarily like the school or the staff either. It could be like parents, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I feel like that's where most of the pushback would come from.
Mhm.
If it was
Oh
going
yeah.
on, because of the parents may not see the value in teaching the students why
Right.
cultural appropriation is a negative thing. They may not even know what cultural appropriation is themselves, so
Yeah.
they will most likely be the main source of pushback on that issue.
So I
That's
guess the question isn't how to like eliminate it, but how to like weather it, you know?
Yeah.
And I think part of that, what I keep hearing from people who do social justice work in education is that you need to have like a community of educators that are in it with you, you know?
Yeah.
And like people there to support you and stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't really know how to like build that, like being a first year teacher. Like I don't know what that would look like,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
How do you start that conversation with your coworkers and be like, we need to do this and we need to figure out a plan for when we get the pushback?
Alongside of like, you know, being overwhelmed as like a baby teacher.
Yeah.
We are at 20 minutes. 21 minutes.
Okay, we should move along.
Yeah.
We have C and D.
We kind of already talked about, like, mine was like about the thoughts of teaching Native American literature. So it was kind of just talking about like he was talking about like different, it was basically laying out things that you need to look for when picking out like literature that has Native Americans in it that's like accurate and authentic. So it was like kind of what we've already been like learning about, but like specific to Native American literature.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For sure.
So yeah.
Cool.
One thing I thought was like interesting though, from that article was like that I didn't really think about was like that you should look out for is like being wary of like work that's in translation, because not all of like books that would have been like in different Native American languages are going to be translated in like an accurate form. So if you're going to teach those, then you have to make sure that they're getting across what you want them to, what they were going to say in the original language.
I totally understand that also because like the Native American stories, they were told orally, like they weren't written down anywhere. They spoke them like to each other while they were having their powwows and things like that, things that are so like heavily ritualized. So how do we know, is there more guidelines for Native American texts because those stories were not typically written down?
Yeah, and it
Good
also
muddy question. Someone write that down.
what was it? Wait, let me get the time.
Like
Yeah.
is there like more guidelines on how to choose Native American texts for our students because those type of stories and those type of texts were orally told to like within the tribes and beyond the tribes and stuff.
Right.
And like when I was reading that article too, it made me think about like I know when I was in elementary school, like around Thanksgiving time, I feel like that's definitely a time where you kind of have to like be careful of choosing books if you want to like address like that whole part of history. Make sure that you're being accurate about it, because a lot of them I feel like are not accurate or like portray like Native Americans in a bad way. So
Yeah.
interesting
Okay, so
about it.
I have. Is there more guidelines for Native American stories in classrooms because these stories were told orally, and then in parentheses, are they always accurate? Is that good?
That's good.
Yeah, she should be, if she addresses it, she should be able to address that.
Yeah, and also because they're told orally, I wonder if, you know, the person who decided to make that book has permission to share it.
Yeah.
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 Like, was it someone of the tribe, or was it just like a distant family member who's still technically Native American, but not like belonging to that tribe? You know?
Mhm.
Like, what
Yeah.
gives them the authority to write that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that reminds me a lot of in the Slappin' and Seals reading. where it like gave the two examples of like, is the author, prepared to write this book? Like, where it's coming from. Like, the two examples they gave was like the second one was just like, I don't know, it just seemed so much more thorough, and like this is this person's background and they studied it academically, and like they do this for like this amount of time for this many reasons and like all of these things. And the first one was like, this author creates like fanciful tapestries of Native American like Indian things, and I was like, wow. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I
know. I thought that reading was a joke until I got to.
What?
I thought that reading was like a joke until I got to the end because I was like, this is really uncomfortable to read.
Yeah.
I think it's uncomfortable because I know that there's books out there that actually like have those inaccurate depictions of Native Americans.
Mhm.
Yeah. Like when you were saying about the like Thanksgiving reading, like as I was going through that, I was like, yeah, I've seen a book like that was read around Thanksgiving time because it was like a fun seasonal thing to do.
Right.
Not good.
Okay, so on a different note, mine's about poetry. D. And like, so Tunnel was. So Tunnel is. I'm just trying to get us going. We're at 25 minutes. So D was talking about how to build appreciation for poems within kids, and I laughed at this question because I really don't like poetry. I never did as a kid either. Like I don't like making haikus or anything like that. But something that the Tunnel talks about is like using humorous and like poems that have rhythm to it, and the example that he used was Shel Silverstein, and I read him a lot growing up, and I have his book like right next to me actually, and I still read it, and I have to choose a poem in Tunnel that I had to share with you all, and I chose The Kid on the New Block, and it's the one that Shel Silverstein decides to start his book, Where the Sidewalk Ends. And I remember reading it and wondering why he chose that to open his book, because it's pretty much about a bully who's really mean. So I was wondering like why, but and then it goes more into talking about the different forms of poetry, and there are narrative poems, lyric poems, limericks, haiku, concrete poems, and free verse. And I don't know. Yeah, those are all of them. I'm not gonna go into detail about it.
The concrete poems was the one with like the main, right? The words are shaped in like the object that it's talking about.
They're written or printed on the page in a shape representing the poem's subject.
Okay. I'd never seen it.
Oh, let's see.
I mean, I saw the one in the book.
Oh. Yeah, no, I think that would be a really fun one to do with kids, though.
Yeah, you could like integrate that with the science thing or something. Like I'm in a practicum right now at Shucks and Mills, and they're learning all about a marine animal, and like they could draw their marine animal with the words that they're writing about, and that was a cool integration for that.
Yeah. I think that's everything. What did you think of the children's books?
I like
We really like them.
I liked The Black or the Berry more than I liked A Suitcase of Seaweed.
I like
And like
Super
also
Seaweed more than Black or the Berry, so we have like a matching set.
I just connected more to like the Black or the Berry one because I have a little cousin, and she's half black and half white, and all of us in our family are all like blonde hair, blue eyes. Like everyone's white, and we like don't have any differences. And she's the first little mixed girl in our family, and she also goes to a school that's predominantly upper middle class white students. And I remember her coming home, and just like at the beginning of this year, she was in first grade, and one of her classmates told her that her hair looked different, so she couldn't sit with them at the lunch table. And the same night, we were out to dinner, and she wouldn't eat something on her plate, and I go, Hallie, why won't you eat this? And she says, because it's the same skin color as me, the same color as me. and I just didn't, like, at the time I was so baffled about what she had just said, I didn't know what to think about it. But now that after reading The Black or the Berry, I think I want to go, like, take it back to her and read it with her. And hopefully, she's only a first grader, but hopefully it'll resonate something with her. And I think those kind of texts are super important to have in our classrooms, even if we are a predominantly white school. Like my school district is, we have like one Title I school. There's no diversity whatsoever where I come from, and it's still important to show our students these kind of texts so as not to build that cultural appropriation, and we have to let our students know that they do have white privilege.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I really liked about the Black or the Berry is how it kind of addressed how there's like diversity, like even within like the Black community, and like how there's like different shades of like brown, and like how you shouldn't feel bad just because you may like be a different color than like your other like African American friend. And I love the poems in that book, and the illustrations were great too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Colorism is it's true in Asian cultures too. So reading that, I agree with you, Caitlin. It was interesting.
Yeah.
But, okay, do we have any other questions before we wrap this up? We need one more muddy question. I kind of liked how she tied like poetry to race and like ethnicity together. I don't know if that can be turned into a question or not, but
I don't know. I guess be like encouraged to write something like this maybe.
what was that?
We help our students to explore poetry similar to how maybe writing it or
Try to text it out on the chat thing.
Yeah, how can we encourage students to explore poetry? What?
okay, I just lost it. I don't know. How can we get them to explore poetry with I don't know, connection to racial ethnicity, either writing it or reading it?
Okay, how can we encourage students to explore poetry with connections to their own experiences, lived experiences?
Yeah.
Yeah. That one.
Okay, sweet. Yay. All done. Yay. I'm going to stop broadcasting. Bye, Joy.